Everyone for still being here. Shit. Oops. Is this one on too? No. Okay, so how many of you are new to CarolinaCon and still here? That explains a lot. Thank you. Every other person that's probably been here for years knows that attendance kind of, well, diminishes on Sunday for various things that happen on Saturday night. So, dude, did Windows just shut down? So first, I'm going to show you how to rearm Windows 7. Yeah, I don't know what just happened there. It's going to complain again. So. I haven't had this damn thing connected to the network the whole time. It's a feature, I agree. I'm just pissing off Microsoft every chance I get here. If anyone here is from Microsoft, I don't want a key, so don't try to give me one. So, so thanks for coming out. Hopefully this will stay and not get shut down for piracy again. The art of post-infection response and mitigation. What the hell just happened on my network? That may be a question you hear quite often. Shame on you. It may be a question your boss asks you. It may be a question that you ask yourself. Dude, you'd think this is a live demo or some shit. I'll just drink for Windows. So, what the hell just happened on my network? Hopefully, after we're done here today, I can help you find out. So the basis of this talk is basically about having an IT department or some instance where you may have security people, but not really. A lot of IT departments don't have someone that specializes in malware, and you damn well should. So that's basically what this talk is about. On to the good stuff. My name's Caleb. A lot of people call me chill. A lot of people tell me to chill. Some people say I am chill. Just depends on how much I've had to drink when you catch up with me. Right now, I'm going to see how this is going to work out today. I'm a senior malware analyst at the Media Trust. The Media Trust does nothing that has to do with this talk, just in case you wanted to know. The Media Trust does kind of cloud malware mitigation. I do malware analysis. I get all the bad critical things, and I play with them, and I find out what they do. And I tell our customers what they do and to stop doing them. I'm the founder of the CarolinaCon Shootout. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. Also, if everyone's interested next year, we're going to have it next year again. Every year strong for 6 years. Again, thanks for coming out on Friday. I'm a dirty white hat. My opinion, you can't really be in the security industry without doing some devious shit. If you consider yourself a straight up white hat, I'm sorry. You have to do devious things to be in the InfoSec industry. You have to bend your ethics sometimes to do things to learn more. So just keep that in mind when you're questioning yourself, should I actually do this? Well, if it's going to get you arrested, don't do it. But if it's just on your home network, on your test machine, something like that, please do it. Learn more. And I'm your Huckleberry. That has nothing to do with anything. It's just my favorite quote ever from the best movie ever made. And if you come to the shootout, sometimes I am your Huckleberry. So on to the good stuff. What we're going to cover is the gray area, which is post-infection. A lot of people really don't think about what happens after you get infected. A lot of people think about what happens before then, and a lot of people think about what happens after the infection is gone. There's no real talk about what the hell happened just now on my network. So after that, we're going to go over some malware breach responses, some planning, and DEM tools. So I'm going to show just a few tools that I find really, really interesting, and just going to go over some methods to find new tools other than the ones I'm about to show you. So away we go. Why is post-infection a gray area? And can anyone tell me why it's such a weird place to hang out?
It's different every time?
Yeah. That is true. It's literally different every single time, whether it be the hash of the files that you're dealing with, type of infection. Was your hand raised or were you stretching?
One thing I know, post-infection, I was thinking between white hat and black hat was technically due to copyright laws, malware now is technically, I've heard that it makes it technically illegal in the US, but who cares?
Yeah. Although I haven't found one malware author except contractors for our government that actually copyright their software. Correct. And I'll get to that, actually. So I've outlined 3 main reasons why it's a gray area, some good answers. One of the main reasons is over-reliance on antivirus. We got AV, we're good. You know, we'll never get infected. And if we do, we can just call the AV company. Sweet, simple as that. We'll have that infection out of here in no time. Well, define no time. And, you know, you may have an infection on your network, but what the hell happened? Malware, antivirus is not what it used to be. It's not the first layer of security you should have against viruses. It's no longer that. Symantec and other people say, you know, antivirus is dead. It's not. Unfortunately, it's not. It's kind of annoying, but it's not dead yet. It's still required as a security layer. It's not what it used to be used for, though. Antivirus right now is used for a breach alerting mechanism. 1 out of 100 times, it may stop something from getting on your network as a whole. There's still artifacts, though, that are going to get on your network. Antivirus will alert you once you're fucked. And that's only if you have your admin console set up correctly. All those damn emails that keep coming in your inbox that you made a folder for that say malware alerts, the ones you keep ignoring, that's your AV actually doing its correct job and letting you know your network is breached. It's not telling you how it's breached, it's not telling you why, but it's saying, hey, you know, you should probably check this out. A lot of people just ignore that. SOCs, you know, if you have a SOC for your organization, great, but not everyone has that. There are even large corporations that don't have a SOC. You know, they may contract their stuff out, or they may just have IT people. And a lot of security administrators actually aren't that damn familiar with malware. They don't know how to handle it, they don't know what to do with it, and that's pretty much the basis of this talk. Another reason people consider this a gray area is malware persistence techniques. If a piece of malware is on your system and it doesn't want you to know it's there, you're probably not going to know it's there unless you're actually analyzing your box every day. If a piece of malware is popping up in a fake antivirus in front of you and, you know, Jake in HR keeps dragging it to the damn corner, obviously it's not trying to hide itself. It's trying to persist. It's trying to extort you in some way. CryptoLocker, I mean, if you don't know what CryptoLocker is in this room, start Googling. Just don't go to Google Images because you'll probably get CryptoLocker. So yeah, malware persistence techniques, you're not going to know it's there. And it goes hand in hand with a reliance on antivirus. If you're ignoring these alerts and it's telling you it's there, you know, and you're not doing anything about it, it's actually your problem, not Jake in HR who keeps dragging the window down to the corner of the screen, doesn't know any better. It's also your fault for not training Jake a little better and restricting his access. So third thing is really just lack of exposure and training. How many of you work in an IT department at some level? Okay. How many of you have a malware person? A little surprising. Last time I did this, there were no hands. So that's actually really good. But it's the IT departments that don't have that person. And it doesn't take certification. It doesn't take anything like that. I mean, YouTube is not a certification. You can find a lot of stuff on YouTube. You can find a lot of sites out there that just have information about where viruses hang out and just some steps you can do to initially look. Every single removable article you read about antivirus, just removing viruses, it's going to start out the same way, and it's going to take you through the same set of directories. It's going to take you through the same steps. If you use these steps documented in a wiki or something at your organization, you know, you're already 2 steps ahead of the game. You don't have to call your AV company. If you call your AV company on top of anything else, you're giving away a potential targeted attack to an AV company that really gives no shits that it was a targeted attack. They just want the samples, so they detect it on other people's machines. So yeah, train your people. Get them some exposure to malware. There's basically 3 response paths you can take once a malware infection, once you find out about it in one way or another, whether it's someone complaining or you finally check your AV, see, oh, hey, it's up to date. Oh, yeah, by the way, there's these 1,000 alerts from, Tom in finance. Gee, what's it? Oh, it looks like a worm. Gee, what do those do? Oh, they steal information. So if you have someone trained, if you have someone exposed to how to handle malware, and at least do kind of minor analysis on it, it's really going to benefit your organization more than just relying on your antivirus company. Or if you have contractors that are doing security and they know about malware, ask them or have them relay some information to your on-staff people about what to do in these situations. It's really common sense, and it gets into not so common sense when you encounter a piece of malware. So the 3 response paths I'm going to talk about. First one's Reimage, second one's WTF, and the third one's basically removal and analysis, which in my opinion is the most proper way to go every single infection, no matter what. I have these listed way out of order, so just bear with me. The first path I'd like to talk about is Reimage. And if you have been a sysadmin or an IT person in this room, you know that it's the fastest way to get someone back into their work. It's the fastest way that you may be required to do by your higher-ups. Nuke and pave that thing, get it back. It may be a quick recovery, which is the plus. But if you're going to do this, if you're going to reimage the machines, look a little bit into the word image. Reimaging is basically, throw clean image on top, reinstall the software, good to go. Jake's back getting viruses on his finance machine. Sweet. If you're going to do this, practice some lazy admin kung fu. And all lazy admin kung fu is kung fu to make lazy admins or admins that are required to do this kind of thing just be in a better place after it happens. So there's a Windows 7 box, they're telling me to reimage it. What should I do? Well, take an image for yourself. Don't just get into Windows and hook an external drive up. Boot to a secondary environment, image that drive. Image the boot partition, image the main partition. Reimage them onto a VM, play with them a little bit, see what the heck's going on. You should know what's going on anyways, but just have an image. If anything, if you're not even going to do anything with that image and your higher-ups are saying that's a waste of time, explain to them it's not, because if anything, you have a organically infected machine that you can play with on your own time and learn this stuff so you don't have to call your AV company. If you have like 4 or 5 images that have gotten infected throughout your organization, they have different infections on them. They may be targeted, they may not be targeted, but you'll never know unless you actually look at them, look at what they're trying to steal, or just have a sense of what the hell you should do in the first place when this occurs. If you see something targeting QuickBooks files, it's not a good thing, but you wouldn't know. Your AV company is not going to tell you that back. They're not going to give you some analysis report. They're going to close your case because that's what they want to do. They want to get your computer back to whatever kind of weird working condition it was in the first place and just, close the case. So the second path I'm going to talk about is a path that a lot of people follow, and I don't understand it. I used to lead a malware response team at my former company, and so the W, first off, doesn't just stand for what, it stands for why, and it sometimes stands for a combination of both what and why, because you're so perplexed at what you're being told, you're like, why? What? Like, basically what happens, a breach occurs, and you ignore it, or your admin ignores it. They keep using the computer. Like the example with Jake in HR, pulling the fake AV box down to the edge of the screen just so you can keep using the computer. They may have gotten hit with a Word exploit, and they're still using Word. They're still typing directly into it. It's crazy. And I've been on networks where they have still been using everything that's infected for months. And then they call us. And they're like, we need to know what happened. We've lost like $20,000 in the last month. How? Oh, they got a hold of our bank credentials somehow. Well, you check the timestamps on some of this malware, it's been there for months. And I mean, as much as malware can actually manipulate the timestamps and stuff, look, you'll find either a temp file or some little file that's going to indicate that these people have been infected actively with this malware doesn't even care that it knows, it's popping screens up in front of you. This malware just wants to extort you in some way, but they keep using it. And the malware authors notice, so they keep checking these connections, and all of a sudden they're, oh wait, this is a company. This isn't like someone's grandmother. Let's just remote in real quick. And then they load Nmap, then they load crazy stuff in your network, because what else would they do? That's why they're there in the first place. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm thinking better title for that would make target style, because target got a notification on its outsourced security provider well before the breach that it started, the date of the headquarters sat on that notice.
I understand, but what the fuck? Why are you still using it? Like, all I can say when someone tells me they're still using a machine with an infection on after months, you fucking what? Like, I've been using this machine. Oh, don't worry, it's just what it runs our QuickBooks, our RDPs on this server. No problem, Configure's been run on here for like a year. So yeah, don't be these people. And on top of that, if you find these people, correct their behavior. Because if you know these people, and they know you're into security in some aspect, and they don't have security people in their IT organization, they're probably going to start asking you some questions, and you're going to find it so ridiculous of a situation, you're not going to want to help them. Or you're going to consider a lost cause, because some networks are so badly infected, they're a freaking lost cause. If they have servers, they're booting up, they won't patch them. I heard someone talking about a Windows 2000 server on Friday that they still have to actively support security by legacy, but come on. If I'm logging on publicly to port 445 on your Windows 2000 server and using like 10, 12-year-old exploits that still work, there's a huge issue here. So the path I want to talk about the most, other than lazy admins and potentially high-functioning individuals that are very, very special, are removal analysis. Every time you find an infection or you get alerted to an infection, this is the path any of you should take. You're in this room for a reason. You came to CarolinaCon this weekend to learn about security and stuff. Please, please, please. Malware is very prominent. Malware is one of the biggest things in the news right now because people can't stop it. It's not if you're going to get infected, it's when. If you're planning not to get infected, I don't know what planet you live on, because everyone gets infected. It doesn't matter if you have high security, it doesn't matter anything. You're going to get infected. I gave this talk in Arlington in a meetup group maybe 4 weeks ago, and I had a guy ask, well, how does malware get around perimeter defenses like FireAmp and anything I would have at the perimeter that blocks all this stuff? Well, I think Smirker actually talked about a little bit. I'd inflect a bunch of flash drives and drop them in the parking lot. Or I'd walk in and just hand a flash drive to the secretary or whoever was up there. They don't know. Oh, yeah, this is for Bob. There's a Bob that works there somewhere. If you drop them in the parking lot, if you drop 10 flash drives with an auto-run virus in the parking lot, guaranteed someone's going to pick one up. Someone's going to wonder what is on the flash drive. And as soon as they put it in their machine, unless you have endpoint protection, which is, give or take, a joke, you're screwed. And you can't pinpoint who isn't going to pick up a flash drive unless you make your organization aware. Don't pick up flash drives in the parking lot. Bring them to the IT office if you find them. No one thinks about that stuff, but it's not if you're going to get infected, it's when you're going to get infected. Again, it doesn't matter. You could have people bringing their own devices in that are actively infected, and they use it as a pivot point. They didn't even know it was a pivot point until all of a sudden the bandwidth usage, like the bandwidth stats on that particular rat, like, oh shit, you know, it's connecting to speed test Comcast in like San Jose. All of a sudden this DSL connection, formerly DSL connection, is able to transmit at like 10 megs a second. Gee, you know, this looks good. I'm glad we infected this laptop. You know, let's get on this laptop while it's active on this line and see what else is on the network. So, some stuff to do basically in the removal and analysis path. First thing is obtain some damn memory dumps. Volatility framework is a great thing. It's not that hard to use just for basic memory analysis. There are tools that Windows makes that are good for getting these. And I'm going to go over a couple of these tools, but you know, get a memory dump. A lot of us have remote offices, and the remote offices may have a crappy DSL connection or something. You may have an instance where you have to use TeamViewer to get on the infected machine. Now, if you want to transfer a 6 gig memory dump over TeamViewer, good luck. If you have secure VPN stuff built, like set up, still good luck. It's a 6 gig memory dump. Unless you're analyzing it on that machine, you're not going to want to wait around for this. By the time you wait around for it, whoever's actually controlling that machine might see you doing this and just shut the machine down. Or I've seen it tripwire and disable the NIC, so you can't do that anymore. Some malware is very aggressive. If you can't get a full memory dump, get a process memory dump. I'm going to be going over that here shortly. So packet captures are very important. A lot of people don't take packet captures into their minds basically when they're dealing with malware. Wireshark, TCP dump, your best friends. If there's an infection on a business machine inside your organization, don't you want to know what it's talking to? That machine became organically infected. It was infected in the way that it was meant to infect, basically. Its point B is that machine. If you rip the malware off the machine and run it in a test environment, you may get skewed results as far as like packet captures go, or even memory dumps, because it's running in an environment that it technically wasn't designed to run on, unless you can fully replicate the infection, which may not happen every time. Question? Just going to say that. Never do it on the machine. I mean, I've seen viruses that block tools, like sysinternals tools and stuff like that. They listen for them. They know they're very effective. Wireshark is one of them. I'm not even sure if they make a TCP dump port for Windows, but always do it on a different machine. I mean, always do it the closest you can get it, but you know, just get a full capture. If you work at the organization, it's a lot easier than if you're a contractor or something like that. You don't have to get specific permission to get a full capture for the network. Question?
Yeah, we do a lot of that, and you know, if you can't do anything else, get a $10 switch that will do a monitor session and throw it in between them just so you can grab it.
Something, but at the same time, breaking that connection and reconnecting it is suspicious activity.
Right.
So you don't want to alert that you're actually looking into this yet. Until you actually get into the nitty-gritty. I mean, disconnecting and reconnecting it, that's fine, but they may have other machines that are infected, and if just one blips on and off really quick, and they're actually targeting that organization, it may throw them off. They may just, you know, hit the kill switch and just nuke the machines. Another thing, do some manual malware extraction. So every time I get on a machine now that I've dealt with malware for so long, I just have these internal lists of stuff I go down every single time. What directories do I look in? Program data on Windows 7, you know, app data, the temp files, or the temp folders, everything. Even like the Windows recycle bin, the directories on the back of it. Every time I find something new out that malware goes to, I add it to my internal list. A lot of people that deal with malware and malware analysis just have these lists of things where they look immediately. So if you can actually get that executable file, play with it a little bit in a test environment with no internet. See what it does. The third thing is kind of on the same track. Have some kind of automated sandbox environment set up. There's a lot of ones that you pay for, but there's cuckoo. Have some kind of cuckoo set up. Not just have an automated sandbox environment set up, but think about who has the potential to get infected in your organization. So if HR runs a certain set of software, have an image with that software. Have a snapshot of what HR would have. If finance runs special software, I know it's a little hard to get permission to do this. Sometimes you actually even need an extra license, but it's worth it. Run that software on the finance image. So you can, if you find a piece of malware that's in your finance department, run it against it. See exactly what it's looking for. If it's looking for stuff actively and you can see the calls, like, do some more investigation. I mean, this is basically very simple things that everyone should be doing. You know, you should look into what the hell is going on with your network. A lot of people don't. It's nuke and pave, or, you know, it's antivirus. Not to keep bashing antivirus, it's still necessary. It's just not as necessary. So, battle planning. Have plans made up. Like I said, don't plan to not get infected. You're going to get infected. Someone on your network is going to have some weird little infection, even if it's a false positive, even if like notepad.exe automatically starts showing up as infected. It might be a false positive for your antivirus, but if you're scratching your head just standing there and you don't know what to do other than contact your antivirus company, I mean, notepad.exe, if I found was showing up in my antivirus as, you know, infected, I'd maybe check the hash against something on VirusTotal to see if anyone actually infects or has this as an infection. So Notepad could get infected. But if it's a targeted attack, why would I want to upload it to VirusTotal? Because VirusTotal is now owned by Google, and we all know how Google is with information. But you can just check the hash. You can get the MD5, you can check it on VirusTotal. All they have is the hash. Good luck, Google. I mean, if no one else has that hash, it might be a targeted attack. So just do your due diligence. So have some response solutions set up. Have a little toolkit. Not everyone has a SOC. Not everyone has a verified toolkit that they're supposed to use for every single breach. Not everyone has that. The people that do, awesome. But the people that don't should have at least a small toolbox of applications that they can use to combat this stuff. Have multiple defense methods. Like I said, AV, step one. Perimeter defense, you should have email filtering and stuff like that set up. I mean, basic stuff. Patch your Exchange server. I mean, that's defense. You can never tell who's trying to get in your network. Just think everyone's trying to get in my network. What the hell can I do to keep them out? Also, audit your network. Don't have Jake in finance running 15 versions of Java. What's wrong with you? I've seen it. There's a record, it's 17 versions of Java. Starting with Java Runtime Environment 5.0, and it's basically like if you go into an eating contest for a cheeseburger, how high can they stack the cheeseburger? Unfortunately, that's the attack vector stack on a lot of people's machines because they have like 15 versions of Java installed. How many vectors do you need? You're running Windows already. You're probably having Flash installed. Why not make it a Java party on top of that? So audit your network and don't install Java. Question?
Just a quick comment in the audit section. One of the things that you also need to do when auditing is audit it for a while and establish a baseline.
Yeah.
What your network looks like when it's running normal. So that way you're not jumping at shadows.
Absolutely. Yeah, baselines are very important. See what the heck see what your network's running first before an infection occurs, before something occurs. But back to my Java rant. How many of you actually need Java in your organization? You need to have Java installed. Is it because your company runs outdated software? Yeah. No, I've run into this a lot. We run Java Runtime Environment 5. We can't uninstall that, man, sorry. But you're going to keep getting infected. They surf the web on this machine. They're using Java Runtime Environment in their browser to deal with this legacy software that you're too cheap to upgrade. You can't prevent that, unfortunately. You can run stuff like sandboxy. Question?
Just virtualize the application completely and sandbox it and hypervisor it and not have to worry about it.
That is great for like a super corporate IT department, but
Or Apple comes with like Windows servers that you can stream from applications.
so I understand where you're coming from on that. I've just seen like nuclear waste show up from situations like that. You can virtualize it. It doesn't mean it's not going to infect the rest of your environment. If they have a pivot point, they're going to go after it. Question?
How many people run Java apps that require older versions of Java?
Yeah. Like I said, if your company actually updates their software to the latest, newest version that they're probably too cheap to upgrade to because it costs a lot of money in some cases. I feel bad for those people then. But I'm saying the point of this is basically if you have to run Java, do it. But keep an eye on those nodes. Keep a closer eye on that network. Implement something that may keep track of the people that have to run the legacy Java. You say that basically you have to have Java installed, it's legacy, it's niche. That's fine, but not every single person in your entire company has to use that software, like you. Check your own machines when you get back. You know, do you have to have that installed? If you do have it installed, is it in a virtual environment? So yeah, if you have to have Java, fine. But just keep an eye on the boxes that do, especially the ones that have to run legacy Java, which, you know, it's a lot of different use cases for legacy Java, and it's out there. So, I think I misspelled trade. So, I'm going to go over some tools of the trade right now. Just 3 tools. That's it. So, the first one, a lot of you should already have experience with. It is Process Explorer, one of the most beautiful utilities that System Internals makes for Windows. If you've never used Process Explorer, it's Task Manager the way it always should have been. It's Task Manager on steroids all the way, like big fucking steroids. So the first thing I like to do when I open Process Explorer is look at the execution tree. I just came across a piece of malware last week where the malware is basically using SMSS to execute, and it was spawning from that, and then it was bumping two iExplorer.exes, and it was using those iExplorers to do various things. As soon as I saw anything executing from SMSS.exe, I was, what the hell's going on here? But even just little subtle things like, you know, SVC host doesn't have 2 Vs. It doesn't. A lot of people will look at this and be like, oh, you know, this is just normal use. Services has an S on the end, services.exe. I've seen every single process in here injected into. If it's executing weird shit, or if Explorer.exe is using like 800K, you know, find out why the fuck it's using 800K. That's immediately what I look at. After that, as an example here, you can do individual process dumps. Question? Correct. Yeah, and actually that's one of the features I was about to get into. But verifying with Google, aka VirusTotal, is fine. But how often do you see Explorer.exe running at 800K? If you look at the execution tree, it just tells a lot about what's going on immediately. If Internet Explorer is not open on the machine and there's like 8 of them listed, find out where the hell find out what is initiating these Internet Explorer executables. I mean, just looking at this, even though I'm just targeting the VirtualBox guest add-on here, as soon as you look at it as a computer person, you should be so used to looking at the execution tree of Windows, you should already know what's suspicious and what's not. But Process Explorer does have some really neat built-in tasks, like you can create individual process dumps. You can do handle and module searches, which is very handy, especially in the case of zero access. I just used this as an example. I didn't actually have zero access installed on this, but zero access for a long time had a piece of its artifacts. It was just an @ symbol, and it was hooked into everything. So as soon as you would get on here, everything would look pretty much normal, but you do a handle search, and you'd find this @ symbol basically injected into everything in this weird directory that you can't get to through explorer.exe traditionally. So if you find artifacts in malware, look for them. Look for them internally in the system. You might see a file name, and if you do a handle search on that file name, you're going to see exactly what it's trying to access or exactly what it's hooked into. And then you can make your determination on what to do next. If you find like 5 different things hooked into services.exe, guess what? It's trying to persist. You're not going to shut down services.exe on Windows. It's going to crash immediately, which is the point of it trying to persist through injecting into that. And finally, as you pointed out, properties on steroids. So as he was pointing out, you can actually do a virus total hash search within the properties menu for Process Explorer nowadays, which is fine. But just keep in mind, targeted attacks, do you really want Google to even have the hash? So 9 times out of 10, if it's randomly named or if it's just skewed enough to like try to throw you off, it's a virus. If it's doing something, if someone's complaining, if you're getting AV alerts, don't bother with virus total. It's already a virus. If you're just not sure, and there are certain cases where you'll, like, is this the right behavior? You know, verify the hash with virus total. It doesn't hurt if you're out of options. If you can't figure out if it's and virus total may not be any help. You know, there's 56 different AV engines on there. What if 30 come up and say it's a virus and the other 30 say it's clean? I mean, usually I only use virus total to see if it's a false positive or not. And I'll look for kind of the major AV companies to be detecting it. If none of them detect it and only Icarus AV is detecting it, it's probably a false positive. But that's kind of the last thing I go through before I actually dive into, that's kind of the last thing I go through before I kind of tap out at that point. Some other things you can do, you can actually verify the actual signature of the executable with Microsoft. It's helpful. You can spoof that, but it is a helpful little thing. You can look at all the TCP activity and stuff like that. You can do a process dump. You can also look at the memory and the actual executable strings from this properties prompt, which malware strings kind of a thing of the past, but not really. You can see all the API calls it's making in plain text. If you load the memory strings, you may be able to see sites it's connecting to. I found a malware form one time just because I looked in the strings of an executable that was actively running on the system. It was just some guy that was like basically showing everyone what he did on, I think it was openws something. It's no longer operational. But, question?
Yeah, one technique I used was you take the corporate bill and you identify the hash, everything on the bill. And then what you do is when you find something and you're not sure, you take a 75 hash and you grab against that.
Yeah.
75 hash. If you don't find it, then you know you got something.
Yeah, and I mean, again, that's kind of the virus total-ish. I'd probably do that in the background if I actually had a set of hashes for every machine. Some corporate environments are so locked down, you know, you use WSUS and stuff to get the updates on, but in a world of updates and exploits, sometimes a hash list isn't the most efficient thing to do. But nonetheless, a good step. Second tool I want to talk about is Dumpit. It's a statement and a tool. Dump some memory. If you're going to do a full memory dump, Dumpit. Volatility has tools, but this is a very lightweight Windows executable that even on the most infected machines, for some reason, it's just worked. It's not been blacklisted by AV authors or anything like that, or sorry, AV authors, malware authors. But very handy tool. It'll give you a raw file, and you can play with it all you want afterwards. The third tool is probably the most interesting, though, and it's basically called PC Hunter, aka, and the pronunciation's way up, Zooter. And I call it that because, well, it has an X, T, and R in it. So when I was on the malware response team, we were trying to find a lot of tools, basically, that would look deeper into the kernel. A lot of tools are only coded for x86 architecture. So when you're on a 64-bit machine and you're looking at 64-bit architecture, there's some weird problems that come up. A lot of the tools that actually look at the MBR and stuff like that are made for x86. Some, you run them and they blue screen Windows 7 64-bit. They're not made to run in a 64-bit environment is the problem. And you can't just change little modifications in the code. Everyone I've talked to says it's a full rewrite. Don't quote me on that. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if they're just lazy admins, but it seems like a whole lot of work. So I was trying to find this tool, basically, that would let me look and see what the heck's going on with the kernel while I was on a machine that was actively running malware. And like I was saying, a lot of tools, malware will blacklist. TDSS Killer, Process Explorer, Gmer, if you're familiar with Gmer. A lot of these tools are so well known to AV authors, malware authors. We're just going to group them in the same boat, actually, because they're both assholes. So, so we were looking, how do we prevent this malware? Even when the malware was stopping our tools from running, we knew exactly how to edit the calls to make that stop. But we just couldn't get in because x86 tools. It wasn't meant for the architecture. So, and another thing I'm going to talk about is basically how to research tools, how to find new tools. And don't take my word for it, but we're going to go through that as well. So we found this PC Hunter. It used to be called just Zooter. It's available on zooter.com/download. The reason I have /download is because the entire website is Mandarin. If you can read Mandarin, great. Go to the main site. They're probably talking about a lot of cool shit. I have no idea what they're talking about. But there's a download directory. It's just an index directory you can download. There's a free version. There's a pro version. There's an SDK version. Whoever the guy is or girl that codes this utility has gone against the wishes of their people, being that a lot of Chinese hacker groups hack into America. This is a tool that actually allows me on a 64-bit architecture to look into the kernel. I can look into ring 0, I can look into ring 3, I can look at all the kernel calls. Not only that, when I run this, it self-obfuscates. It drops its own driver. When it's done, when you close it, it kills the driver. If you can see the top, the blue bar up there, every time you run it, it gives you a different string. So it's not identifiable to malware. TDSS Killer, when you run it and you look at it in a situation like this, it comes off as the same thing every single time. You know, the malware knows exactly what to look for and block it. With this utility, which is in really good English, as a matter of fact, you can just look so deep that it will even highlight these listeners in red, and you can just right-click and delete them and run your tools all day. But why haven't I found a tool like this on North American soil? I have no idea. Why did this person code this when a lot of people are trying to break in to American government facilities and whatnot? Well, so true. They are debugging their own code. Some other stuff you can do, you can actually look and see if ring 3, if the program that's running has ring 3 access. As you will see by the Mandarin on the screen, this particular utility, it says it's denied, but it does have viewing rights into ring 3. Something else you can do that I found very useful in a snap if you're in a hurry with this utility. It has a computer examination tab that you can just run a full report. Every single tab, and I mean this thing gets really deep into the system with the information it spits out. It takes a bit. If you're in a hurry and you need to get ready to image the machine, you want as much information as you can, run an examination report, you'll be surprised at the results. There's a ton of other stuff in this utility. It even has, once you run it, you can actually disable other executables and services from starting up. It has delete functionality where it doesn't just delete. You can kill, delete, and delete and lock. It'll actually put a file with the same file name in place of the file you just deleted, so it doesn't come back, or it tries not to come back. I mean, whoever coded this, there's even a FireEye add-on, unfortunately, which, didn't they put out an APT1 report? So, very, very useful tool. But,
So you're sure this isn't adding something to your system and just hiding that, showing everything else?
but, look, exactly. So, all these tools are great. Every single tool I find, I analyze like it's malware. Like, I put it through the ringer because I want to know exactly, if I'm going to use this on someone's machine, especially a corporate network, I want to know what it does first. You watch all these survival shows and they're like, you know, never buy a survival kit at the store. Always make your own so you know exactly what it does. Same philosophy applies to finding tools to combat malware in these situations. I mean, this tool does like 4 or 5 callouts to China. It's still a killer tool, but guess what? Before I do anything, I'm going to null all these IPs out in the host file. I actually made a little batch file that does that. This last time I gave this talk, someone actually asked me if I was monitoring the DNS requests that were going out. No, I wasn't. Don't take my word for it. Test the shit out of this tool before you use it. But regardless, it's a killer tool. Now, since he's actually moved this to PC Hunter rather than calling it Zooter, there is a pro version that costs money apparently, or yen, or whatever. There's a free version, and this is the free version. I don't even know what it does differently because I can't understand the website. But you know what? The free version and the paid version both call out about 4 or 5 times to various IPs in China. One of them, I'm assuming, is a legit update mechanism. The other ones, I don't care. Like, I don't want to know what they are. I'm going to block them because it's a killer tool and I still want to use it. I mean, the caveat to that is also, after you've taken the packet capture, pull the plug. Pull the network cable plug, that is. You know, don't let it call out. Use it as the tool it's meant to be, but always do research on your tools. Sysinternals, I want to know if it's calling back to Microsoft. I want to know if Microsoft is actually looking at the hashes for every single thing I'm looking at on a malware infection. I mean, don't trust anything. Just because Microsoft made it doesn't mean it's legitimate. I mean, look at Windows Millennium Edition. You know, I don't even think they coded sysinternals. They actually bought it from someone. TDSS killer from Kaspersky, they didn't make that. They bought it from Gmer, I think. It was a killer rootkit utility, but, you know, the same thing goes with TDSS killer. It actually calls out to Kaspersky every time you run it. It wants to know if it's updated, so it calls back to Kaspersky every single time you run it, and you'll get this prompt that says, hey, looks like TDSS killer is out of date. Let's go ahead and update it before you actually run it to combat this malware. It doesn't matter what company you work for. You could work for another AV company that's not Kaspersky. You realize how much data they could be getting back just from that update mechanism? Same with the one on this, only this is China. Well, Kaspersky's Russia, but same thing. So if you're going to find tools, but analyze them. Don't trust them. Even that Dumpit program, I want to know if it's making outgoing calls. Someone sent me like a TIFF file the other day. Anyone know what a TIFF file is? It's associated with malware, mostly, but it's actually a lossless compression format that photographers used to use before, well, everyone started spreading malware with TIFFs, I'm pretty sure. But they were like, oh, you know, what is this? So I started looking to see if it connected outbound or to anything. No. Does it make any funny registry keys? No. Stuff like that. Every single thing you're going to use, analyze it. There's a utility called systracer. I'm sure there's other utilities. Systracer basically takes a registry snapshot, and then you install whatever. You take another registry snapshot, and you do differential on them to see what happened. If you have an automated sandbox utility set up, it kind of does it anyways. It'll call out everything that was created. And Cuckoo has a shit ton of add-ons. So other stuff you should check out because they're awesome. Volatility, of course. Volatility actually has a utility that can grab onto the active memory in the system and let you drop shit directly out of it while it's running. I can't recall the actual name of that utility, but check out volatility, download it, start playing with it, do a memory dump on your own machine, figure out your own passwords out of that. Kali Linux, I'm not even gonna ask, you all use it or something. Kali is actually good for this kind of thing. You can spoof DNS. You can do a lot of handy things that you would use to actually attack someone with Kali to monitor stuff like this. So in the case of like PC Hunter, you could actually set up a fake DNS server and catch those DNS requests with utilities that are already built into Kali. Windows sysinternals, check them out. It's the malware's removal toolbox, really. And I just call it sysinternals first off. Calling it Windows kind of, I don't know, taints it a bit. Gmer is neat. It's only x86. It's a rootkit detection and removal tool. Gmer will either be a rock star or it will be a blue screener of machines. So it does an initial scan as soon as you start up. Sometimes that scan hits a tripwire and it may unleash CryptoLocker on your machine. So word of warning with a lot of these, malware cares if you're trying to uninstall it. Cuckoo, obviously. Wireshark, everyone in this room should at least have some experience with Wireshark. If anything, download it because the logo is a fucking shark. Why would you not want that? So just some bootable utilities as well. If anyone is familiar with kind of forensic investigation, bootable utilities, Helix is a really good one. A lot of forensic investigators in the InfoSec industry use Helix. A lot of neat tools built in, a lot of neat imaging tools. Deft is a not so known one. I was looking for an alternative to Helix. Deft actually had extra libraries built in that let me mount a Mac OS HFS Plus image or something and actually access it correctly as though it were Mac, rather than having to fiddle around and basically do stupid stuff to it to make the files jump out. Another reason I hate Macs, no offense to anyone, but I should just be able to mount the fucking image instead of jumping through a bunch of hoops. Nonetheless, if you need to, Deft already has those libraries and such built in. There's nothing you need to install. Hiren's boot CD. Does anyone know about Hiren's boot CD? Yeah, Hiren's is freaking awesome. It's probably highly illegal. The tools, like, don't get caught using them. There's a mini version of XP on it. You can literally boot to just a WIM file of XP, and it's like a Windows XP shell, which is useful for malware removal. I actually modified Hiren's. It's about a 500 meg ISO. I got it down to about 119 megs, and I made it a responder disk, actually. And people were able to boot into Windows XP. People were able to boot in the Linux partition side of it. And the XP side, I actually made networking automatically start up, wireless and wired. And the background image was like instructions on how to run TeamViewer. And I had a TeamViewer client on there. And it just had a ton of removal tools, ton of instructionals for anyone to actually remove viruses with it. Why did I make that? Well, CryptoLocker. We got sick of telling people to take their machines to their local IT store or IT department. There was no way, back before CryptoLocker actually infected and encrypted the entire hard drive, it would just throw up a, ransomware. It would throw up a screen and it would just lock you out of your system and maybe turn your webcam on to start yourself. But then it got a little smarter and started using like AES 204.8 encryption on your files. And it became true ransomware. It wasn't just something you had to get past to get access to your Explorer shell anymore. But Hiren's very good, has like pirated version of Norton Ghost on, just crazy good utilities all over the place. And by default on the DOS menu when you boot to it, you can do a 7-layer 0 that the FBI uses to get rid of anything that you may not want. And also, Sift Workstation is just a VM that SANS offers for free. Download it, pump it up on your hypervisor. Just check into it. It does about the same thing as Helix, only it's an actual workstation that you just download the image for. I think it's like an OVA or something like that. Other things to check out, like HoneyDrive, if you've never heard of it. HoneyDrive is a really useful thing if you're used to running like Knoppix and just anything you could think, honeypot or analysis. I believe it's already built into Honey Drive, and it's a downloadable VM. I don't have the link, so you'll have to Google it. And that's it. Any questions? Any more questions? Or comments about AV companies? Question?
No further questions, because we're pressed on time,
Oop.
so, but yeah, if you got a couple, throw them out there, and then, you know, if you got more for chill, we can do it outside.
Gonna take one question?
There's one in the back. One in the back.
If you like Ask Toolbar, you need to get the fuck out of here right now. So anyways, thank you. Hope it was informative.